Diego Lopes continues to chase that fight with Alexander Volkanovski, especially after the news that Ilya wants to make a move to lightweight and fight Charles Oliveira. Um, Props to him. I love Diego Lopes. A lot of MMA fans love Diego Lopes. And what's not to love? You know, he's very energetic, very entertaining, powerful, skillful, good guy in and outside the octagon. He deserves a chance, you know, for the title and a fight with Volk. It's just too bad that Volk is, um, enchanted by another opportunity to get knocked out by Ilya Taporia. And I'm saying this as a Volk fan. And I've said this in many videos now as a Volk fan about how dangerous a second fight with Ilya is for Volk. Um, and Ilya, like I said in a previous video, Ilya is, wants to make a move to lightweight, which is huge. And I support it. I think Ilya should have been given a title shot against Islam uh, as a reward for his knockout against Max Holloway because he's the first to do what no man has ever done against an absolute MMA and UFC legend. So I think Ilya deserves that shot against Islam, but the UFC doesn't seem to be too keen on it. I predict that they won't be too keen about Ilya moving to lightweight either. I think what's actually next for Ilya is going to be that rematch with Volk. I think the UFC will force Ilya to fight Volk again. And you just got to pay attention to these things because fighters may want one thing, but the UFC is going to want a totally different thing for them. And you got to read between the lines. You got to think, you got to see what the UFC is setting up. You got to see what cameos the UFC are putting together, shit like that. Because after Ilya knocked out Max Holloway, the UFC brought Volk into the octagon. Okay, they want Volk to fight Ilya again. It's not because the UFC itself wants Volk to fight Ilya. It's because the UFC respects Volk, and Volk wants to fight Ilya again. And I don't blame the UFC because Volk has always been the guy to call, that late notice guy. The guy who's always going to entertain. He was a stellar champion, one of the most well-rounded UFC fighters ever, and an absolute legend, and one of my favorite UFC fighters. It just hurts to see one of my favorite UFC fighters be so eager to run straight into a brick wall for the second time. I think Volk needs quite a long time before he's ready to fight Ilya again. And that's especially due to the fact that he's experienced back-to-back knockouts, against Islam and Ilya. And there's this whole lore behind a fighter being chinny and what chinny means. Like once you get knocked out, you kind of get scared about the knockout again. So your whole the way you fight changes, and it changes to the point where it's a huge disadvantage, and you likely end up getting knocked out again. And the prime example of this chinny theory is Dominic Reyes. After losing to John, getting knocked out three straight times. It's not a great thing when you've already been knocked out twice in a row. Okay, it's not a great sign going into the third fight. So, the best approach going into that third fight is to go in extremely cautious, and I think this is the complete opposite. I think Volk is headstrong and stubborn about getting that rematch with Ilya. He says he doesn't care where it is, what time it is. He wants to be next up for Ilya, and the UFC seems to want to oblige and give Volk that second chance. And that's what I think they'll do, especially after Sean Strickland is getting a second chance with Dricus, even though Khamzat Chimaev deserves a shot against Dricus way more. So you just got to read between the lines and look at what the UFC's real intentions are. So with this, I think Ilya will be forced to fight Volk again. It's no problem from Ilya's point of view, because if you're Ilya, you don't really care about any featherweight fight anymore. I think Ilya's basically got everyone at featherweight's number. I think he could beat everybody at featherweight. And I really think, that kind of proves that it's time for him to make a move to lightweight. And yeah, he could get a couple more title defenses, but what I think really shows that Ilya's ready for lightweight is the result of his fight against Max Holloway. Okay, and I can't stress it enough. I know I'm repetitive about it, but it's just so apparent and so blatant that that accomplishment. It's such a strong one, and one that deserves an especially significant reward. Either way, this video is mainly about Diego Lopes and Volk. And I do think Volk should fight Diego Lopes, especially so Volk can get a change of scenery, and get some time to improve skills and focus on another fighter that will help him to evolve. Because Diego Lopes will help Volk to evolve. He'll help Volk in so many ways, especially mentally, letting Volk know that he's still Volk. He's still got the skills to pay the fucking bills. And I think that would be a great mindset to have going into a rematch with Ilya. And Volk doesn't, I don't think Volk has that right now. I really don't. I think he's just got that fucking rugby spirit, rough and tough, give me that second chance right away attitude. And a lot of times that just leads to more fucking defeat. And in this case, Volk's already been knocked out twice. Why not add a third one onto the other two? So that's where we are now with this shit. Volk is going to fight Ilya again. It'll be Ilya's next fight. It'll likely be 313, UFC 313, UFC 314, either one. Just whenever Ilya is ready to fight again, the UFC will put Volk in front of him. But after Ilya beats Volk again, I mean, come on, you gotta let Ilya move up to a higher weight class. You gotta let him move up to the next weight class. You have to. Ilya's done with featherweight. Knocking out Volk twice, or defeating Volk twice, come on. On top of knocking out Max Holloway, Ilya's got to fight Islam after that. He's got to. I think if Ilya beats Volk again, screw the number one contender match. Let Ilya fight the champ at lightweight. That's just what you got to do. Okay. Either way, I do feel bad for Diego Lopes in this situation because he, has to sit back and just kind of wait. And it seems like Diego's going to have to wait quite a while. And it's not great for fighters in general. It's not great. Cage rust is a thing. You want to be active, healthily active. And, waiting for this shot probably 3/4 of a year, or waiting for this shot for 3/4 of a year is not great. It's not great. So I do feel bad for Diego. I do think Diego will wait, because he really wants that fight with Volk. And most of all, he really wants the featherweight belt, which all featherweight fighters should want. But I won't even, I think I did give a prediction for this fight already. I won't go into it again because, like I said, I think it's way too fucking soon because Diego's going to have to wait a long time. And like I said, my prediction is that the UFC is going to give Alexander Volkanovski what he wants because they've given Strickland what he wants. And if they're going to give Strickland what he wants, they're going to give Alexander the Great what he wants. Okay? So let me know what you think. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. And most importantly, subscribe. I love you guys, and I'll see y'all in the next.